I would say at the moment that user-generated content is really in its infancy, and particularly it's in its infancy because the major inhibiting factors are so great. Obviously bandwidth is a problem in terms of the potentials for what can be exchanged and built upon in terms of file sizes and various other things. But also there's the inhibition of really the broad questions of privacy, intrusion, intellectual property rights, and I guess to some extent the protection of value that's created. And my guess is at the moment that what we're seeing is really the very earliest versions of how communities might behave. And if we were to look for the opportunities that might become more, I guess, more material or more functionally important to particularly economic purposes, it would be worthwhile to look at some of the communities where this form of communication, if you like, has been a very substantial function of change in the way they behave and experience things. If you go to isolated communities in northern Vietnam or parts of China or any part of Africa, it's not unusual to find people who are having educational and community experiences that are well beyond any sorts of experience they might have had in the past, particularly in relation to foreign cultures and foreign notions. But if we extrapolate that form of education into something that's more to do with communities of interest, these things will inevitably converge around things that are in some ways economic in nature or value. And it would seem to me that whether it's IT related, for example, the notion of open source software converted into a community notion around product even, or it be ones where there are tradable notions or ideas that can be built upon through online communities of exchange. There's no doubt that whether it's a purchasing notion or a transactional notion around investor information and market making, the potentials are enormous. But I'd say at the moment, I mean, it's very clear from all the conversations we have that some of the incumbency issues, particularly with bandwidth and telecommunications, are inhibiting some of the potentials. And it's also clear that when you talk to, as I do, with the sort of commercial relationship of community that we have through our media, that there's a substantial inhibition around privacy or, at the very minimum, the certainty of what you are doing and who you're talking to. So that until there is some way that people create, for example, ways where citizens and like-minded people can actually engage in some confident communication that can be, if you like, personal, it's unlikely that a lot of these things will see their maturity. And certainly as far as things like investment behaviours or business information goes, that is a very important characteristic. One only has to look, for example, at the fundamental driver of value in something like the Bloomberg terminal to see how much interest and value is ascribed to closed forms of community exchange. The email form in Bloomberg is a fundamental part of its value. So we know this is and I guess it's obvious this is true. The next question is how will it be resolved, and that may be where government really needs to be quite, I think, careful, if not far viewing, but certainly careful to understand what the major principles are in controlled and protected environments as to, I guess, how the laws of defamation or intellectual property might need to be considered in this environment for economic value.